Chapter 3. If we take care of the moments, the years will take care of themselves. Maria Edgeworth. It is what it is. Parenthood and practical are two words that belong in different sentences. You're probably wondering what happened to Chapter 2. Well, so am I. I have sat down to write it 3 times and stared, dumbstruck at the computer screen, wondering if this is writer's block, all of one chapter into the journey. I've waited, I've prayed about it, waited some more, got frustrated, and then, well, waited again. And then out came chapters on forgiveness, resourcefulness, and coping, which we'll journey through later on. And now I'm officially accepting the gift in the lesson. It's similar to parenthood, single or not. It's almost the same thing. Life is what happens on the way to the plan. Adapt with it or drive yourself and those around you nuts trying. How many times have you planned to do something to the minute? Some do it to the second. And just when you least budgeted time for it, a nappy needs changing, the doorbell rings, you spill your last sip of something onto your clothing in a conspicuous spot, and then you have to address these things and try to keep to your schedule, make it on time, and slide into second base to get there, whatever it takes. Well, if you live your life on schedules, that's how it'll be. If you realize that children have their own schedule and it has, well, let's be conservative, nothing to do with yours, then your days are probably filled with greater joy than those who live by minutes. I remember once trying to leave on time and deciding it would probably be okay to leave my son's security blankie, appropriately named T-shirt, it was my old black and white pattern sleep shirt that he took ownership of, at home. Mostly because I didn't see it on my way out the door for the 3rd time. Is it just me, or is there a whole lot of going back to get things you've forgotten? Anyway, as we were driving onto the road, my smiling and excited little boy held his hand out towards me and requested, T-shirt? Nope. Got the nappies, the wipes, the snacks, the juice bottle, and a spare, toys and a change of clothing, but nope, not T-shirt. Sorry. Okay? I thought we could manage without it just this once, okay? Well, let me admit right here, I was way wrong. I can't possibly do justice to the response my sweet little angel offered. Let's just say, there was probably more noise at Pearl Harbor, but I have no conclusive proof of that. The resolution was simple. It would make us late, but I knew what I was up against. And accepting I had erred greatly, I returned home to hunt T-shirt down and present it humbly as a peace offering so we could enjoy a beautiful time out together instead of the anarchy that would have followed us for the 2-hour excursion. It crossed my mind to have T-shirt surgically attached to him when I found it inside the seat of his toy truck, the most logical place to keep it, of course, to avoid dramas like that unfolding again. But it certainly was not the end of the world to have the schedule messed with. I'm not condoning tardiness here, make no mistake. But you may have heard the phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. I think it was because they had children running the show. Children just have their own agenda, and we'd serve them and ourselves better if we asked them when it was good for them to tidy up their rooms or finish their meals or complete the getting dressed process. Instead of trying to fit those tasks into our schedules and wondering why we always feel like simmering volcanoes. In some religions, there is the belief that children are taught certain things in utero. Well, regardless of what they may have learned, it is clear they have not learned that it is possible to do 6 things in one afternoon if everybody pulls together, because I'll bet time management was not on the agenda. We make the mistake of assuming that they have absorbed our routines and efforts and will immediately adhere to those daily living requirements. Why were we thinking this? How were they supposed to learn this all? By osmosis. We've endured a lifetime of learning to be on time. No matter how long that lifetime is, it is exactly that. Time-bound. Children just see the world differently. They don't stress about getting there on time. They worry about whether or not you found their security blankie to take with, because leaving without it is not a silent option. They don't concern themselves with getting caught at traffic lights and main intersections that weren't planned for. They busy themselves with the toys they brought with for the journey and the colorful images around them, and we slowly but surely take that innocence from them. We force them into class schedules at school. We teach them the value of time management until one day they're yelling at us, "Come on, Mom, you're going to be late!" Right? Talk about creating your enemy. Unfortunately, that is our reality, time-bound events. I'm a great proponent of bedtimes and routines, so I'm not encouraging we dismiss the schedule issue out of hand. But my perspective on the frustration we suffer trying to keep to schedules is born of a clarity I gained while giving birth as to what was really supposed to be focused on. After 8 hours of induced labor and 2 hours of transitional labor, I was finally taken, close to exhaustion, into the delivery room. I remember thinking, isn't this the perfect greeny-blue setting for the birth of my first child? Who's the decorator? My birthing partner, a dear friend, was pushing on the right side of my taut, solid stomach. The midwife pushed on the left. The doctor pulled from the front, and I pushed from somewhere. I'm still not sure where. The epidural anesthesia left me with little understanding of how to access my pushing mechanism without blowing my eyeballs out, but push I did. Almost everything I had ever decided to do until that moment had been about me. It was my life, my choices, and my destiny. Aside from the short spot I was married, the most amazing event was about to take place. Not only was I giving birth to my baby child, but in the moment he traveled through the birth canal and popped into the world like a cork off a champagne bottle, I went from selfish to selfless in one push. Not entirely, of course, my needs remain important to address, but everything from then on would include him. Every goal, every decision, every plan, everything. Would that be inconvenient? In some instances, absolutely, parenthood is inconvenient. When you're at a celebration, it doesn't matter what you prefer to be doing. If it's time to go to the toilet, no matter how much you wish it could wait, it's not worth forcing the issue. Children need to be having fun or be entertained at least, and sometimes that is inconvenient. But hey, welcome to it. That's parenthood in all its glory. I cannot think of a better way to be inconvenienced than being required to meet the needs my son has at any time. It's not always easy. It's certainly not always convenient. But that is part of the gift of being a parent. I have a cousin who orchestrated her pregnancy because she chose to be a single parent. Her son is a colorful character, exceptionally boisterous, and a lot to deal with, but they are their own family. I remember overhearing someone comment to her, "My goodness, you really have your hands full with him." And her instant response was, "I'd rather have my hands full than have my hands empty." I've never forgotten that moment. The profundity of her comment hung in the air for all listening to take in, and that's exactly it. It's not always easy. It's certainly not always convenient, but it is an immeasurably gifted relationship that goes a long way to completing our capacity to nurture another, and that, for me, is the focus. Nurturing my boy, not meeting my deadlines at his expense. My son does not take well to being rushed the majority of the time. If I call him and say, "Come on, we're going," he'll probably move towards that end, but he might pick something up on the way, insist that he has to do one more of this or that, and after the one more I say, "Okay, let's go." "No, one more." Trust me, the end is not in sight. That's a point we'll journey through in nurturing discipline, the final frontier. And so it will continue until I get assertive about it. So, to accommodate his needs in the moment so the goals can be accomplished together, I plan leaving earlier than is required if I dashed out the door and made a Grand Prix of the journey. I lend more time to his needs so mine are met too. We're both nurtured and blessed for it. Just takes a little planning I have to remember to do, and when I do, the rewards are tangible. Once, I spent way more time than usual trying to coax him into his bedtime routine. He played every game in the book to prolong the inevitable. Ratty and a little spent, I was brushing his teeth in our subtle pink-tiled bathroom with the rhythm of an electric brush, trying to bring bedtime to a close. I was more than a little harassed and focused on my task when he gently put his hand on mine and said, "Please don't rush, Mommy. Just take your time," and looked at me, smiling deeply and patiently, heart-melting dimples and all, forgiving my impatience with him. All the frustration melted into a warm moment we shared quietly and slowly on the cool tiled floor before I snuggled him into his bed and said, "Thanks for reminding me to slow down, baby." And he went to sleep, smiling. Oh, the difference of a deep breath and a few moments more. I don't think we can underestimate how damaging it is for our children when we disregard their needs for our own. We don't like being disregarded either, do we? I remember dating a guy who asked who the first priority would be if we married, him or my son. Tough one, that. It took a whole split second to come up with, my son. Children are always the first priority, and then the runner-up gets everything else once the needs of those who cannot serve themselves are met. Do you remember when you last sublimated your needs for those of your children? Maybe use this space to remind yourself. Those moments are not always easy to come by, and it's so rewarding to remember when you got it just right. Well then, onward. Let's check if chapter 4 is there.